mystery, baby, and the drama never stops here. Gene Hackman's final moments have finally been revealed, but what investigators just found will leave you speechless. The truth behind his and his wife's deaths is sending shockwaves across the nation. "I believe this family was murdered," states one observer after police released disturbing new details about the scene. "Two people just can't die like that, and the dog. It's too creepy and very strange." This isn't just about an elderly couple passing away. It's deeper, messier, and way more intriguing. Let's dive into the juicy details you need to know. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. The shocking footage shows investigators revealing what they found at the Hackman residence, and it completely contradicts the official story. Despite initial reports claiming Gene had advanced Alzheimer's and was disoriented, evidence suggests he was far more active and lucid than we were led to believe. Not only did he drive to the supermarket, he attended Pilates and yoga classes weekly until recently, reveals one source close to the investigation. A picture was taken of him recently of Hackman holding a cup of coffee and walking down the sidewalk, alone. You're not out in public alone, with a hot mug of coffee if you have Alzheimer's. This bombshell revelation completely undermines the narrative that Gene was too cognitively impaired to seek help when his wife died. If he was driving, attending fitness classes, and walking around town independently, how did he supposedly fail to notice his wife's death for an entire week? Even more suspicious are the conflicting timelines around Betsy Hackman's death. Initially, authorities claimed she died from hantavirus, a rare disease that typically causes severe illness for weeks before death. Yet according to reports, she was active just days before, even taking one of their dogs to a veterinary appointment. Betsy had no reason to die of hantavirus suddenly after she had been so active that day, points out one commenter. "I'm sure they were killed by someone they knew, but the timeline just got even more mysterious." New bombshell evidence reveals that Betsy Hackman allegedly called her doctor's office the day after medical examiners claimed she died. She called back on the morning of February 12th and spoke to one of our doctors who told her to come in that afternoon. "We made her an appointment, but she never showed up," a medical office insider revealed to reporters. "She did not show any symptoms of respiratory distress. The appointment wasn't for anything related to hantavirus. We tried calling her a couple of times with no reply." Wait, how could Betsy make a doctor's appointment on February 12th when officials claim she died on February 11th? This revelation has sent shockwaves through the investigative community. Either the time of death is completely wrong, or someone was impersonating Betsy Hackman after her death, suggests a private investigator who has worked on several high-profile Hollywood cases. Both possibilities raise extremely disturbing questions. That's where the story takes an even darker turn. The most disturbing piece of evidence? One of their dogs was found dead, locked in a cage and hidden in a closet, a detail that doesn't align with a couple known for their love of animals. First of all, the dog was locked in a cage and put in a closet. Neither Gene nor his wife could do that. They loved their dogs, states one observer familiar with the family. The two dogs that survived were reportedly traumatized and fearful, behavior that experts say typically indicates they witnessed something disturbing. "Dogs aren't typically fearful unless they saw trauma," explains one commenter with experience in animal behavior. Did Gene know too much? Security cameras at the property have become another focal point of suspicion. According to sources, the security footage showed no movement during the critical period, which makes no sense considering there were two living dogs in the house that would have been captured on motion-activated cameras. The dogs would have been creating movement. So, who erased the tapes? Asks one investigator, pointing to deliberate tampering of evidence. Many are questioning the timing of Gene's pacemaker alerts. If Gene's pacemaker was set to signal that he was in distress, why was not help dispatched to him at that time? Demands one medical professional familiar with cardiac monitoring protocols. Some insiders believe the couple may have been held captive in their own home. All evidence points to a hostage situation, reveals a former FBI profiler familiar with celebrity cases. The pattern of isolation, the home going silent, no calls for help, classic signs of coercion. One was likely allowed out for errands while the other remained captive. The decomposition timeline is perhaps the most damning piece of evidence. From a forensic standpoint, it's impossible for someone with normal cognitive function to remain in a house with a decomposing body for a week, states a forensic pathologist who has worked on high-profile Hollywood cases. The odor becomes unbearable after 48 to 72 hours. This strongly suggests either Gene wasn't in the house during that period, or both deaths happened much closer together than reported. The behavior of first responders and officials has added to the suspicion. The autopsy reporter also appeared extremely nervous, notes one observer, who watched the press conference. Why would a professional medical examiner be nervous unless there was pressure to present a certain narrative? Many are pointing to the absence of household staff as another red flag. I'm sure they had a cleaning lady. Do you really think they cleaned their own house? Weeks passed after they were dead. What about the cleaning lady? Asks one commenter. The mysterious absence of regular household help during this period has never been explained. What's even more suspicious is the specific details leaked about Gene Hackman's bodily condition after death. The initial super-detailed reporting of the condition of Gene Hackman's body and organs after death sounded like a reporter was sitting right in the room for the autopsy. It was really oddly so specific, noted one commenter familiar with medical privacy laws. That level of detail is never released to the public. Someone wanted that information out there for a reason. Further raising eyebrows? The supposed Santa Fe medical examiner cited in early reports doesn't even exist. There is no Santa Fe medical examiner. It's a state system with one office in Albuquerque, revealed a local resident with knowledge of New Mexico's medical systems. This fundamental error in reporting raises serious questions about the source of the initial information. What's even more shocking? According to Hackman's friend and business partner Tom Allen, Betsy was so controlling of her ailing husband that she kept him isolated, despite their $80 million fortune, meaning they could have afforded 24-hour live-in care. I don't think she allowed anybody in the house, especially in the last 6 months, Allen revealed in an exclusive interview. She was going to do everything to protect him until he passed away, but she didn't expect to pass away first. The condition of their $3.5 million ranch home tells an even darker story. The contrast was surreal, confides a Hollywood estate manager who has worked with A-list celebrities for decades. Priceless artwork on the walls, Oscar memorabilia in cabinets, surrounded by absolute neglect. No food in the refrigerator, dust everywhere, dog waste that had clearly been there for weeks. Health experts suggest these appalling conditions may explain the presence of the deadly hantaviruses in the home, but many aren't buying this explanation, especially with the new timeline discrepancies. Betsy thought she could handle it, but she couldn't, a friend added. People here are blaming her. Gene was skin and bones by the end. He didn't have to die. Property records indicate the Hackmans lived in a wealthy area where regular household staff would be common. The sudden disappearance of these workers coinciding with the deaths cannot be mere coincidence. Yes, they had plenty of time to clean everything up. Too many strange things happened, states another observer, suggesting a professional cleaning of the crime scene before authorities were called. Even the police seem to harbor suspicions. I appreciate that the police haven't closed the case despite the official reports. It shows they are genuinely searching for the truth, acknowledges one commenter with connections to law enforcement. What's particularly suspicious is that Gene was allegedly found fully dressed, wearing sunglasses inside the house. Gene was so disoriented but didn't forget to wear sunglasses inside the house, questions one skeptical observer. The lack of home security footage has raised additional concerns. I can't believe there were not security cams, states one security expert. In that neighborhood, with residents of their profile, comprehensive security systems would be standard. The timeline of events simply doesn't add up. If Betsy died on February 11th as reported, how did she supposedly call her doctor on February 12th? And who was feeding the dogs until Gene supposedly discovered her body a week later on February 18th when his pacemaker stopped? If Betsy died on the 11th, who's been feeding the dogs? Wouldn't they have been savagely starving? Asks one commenter with experience in animal care. Dogs aren't typically fearful unless they saw trauma. The official cause of Betsy's death, hantavirus, has medical experts raising serious concerns. I've specialized in infectious diseases for over 30 years, and this explanation is highly suspicious, states a prominent Los Angeles physician who has treated numerous Hollywood celebrities. Hantavirus is diagnosed in only 20 to 30 Americans annually, primarily affecting rural workers in specific regions. The odds of a wealthy woman contracting this virus in a gated community are astronomically low. When following the money trail, financial motives emerge that investigators can't ignore. Hackman's estate is conservatively valued at $80 million, reveals an entertainment industry financial advisor who has worked with A-list celebrity estates. Between the Santa Fe property, royalties from his extensive filmography, and investments, we're talking about substantial wealth that would provide motive for anyone in the inheritance chain. The family dynamics raise disturbing questions that investigators are now exploring. How could Hackman's adult children, Elizabeth, 62, Leslie, 59, and son Christopher, 65, have gone more than 2 weeks without checking in on their supposedly ailing father? In my 25 years investigating family-related deaths, this level of disconnect is a major red flag, reveals a retired LAPD detective who has consulted on multiple celebrity cases. When a 95-year-old man with alleged cognitive issues goes silent, family members typically notice within days, not weeks. In a brief Daily Mail interview after the discovery, Hackman's daughter Leslie claimed it had been a few months since she had last heard from her father, despite insisting they remained close. The family later released a statement saying they were devastated by the loss. But Hackman's longtime friend Tom Allen revealed a contradictory picture. I didn't get the impression that he and Betsy saw much of Gene's children. I never saw them in Santa Fe and didn't hear him talking about them. Digital sleuths have even noted strange inconsistencies in public databases regarding Hackman's family. After the deaths, I was reading about Gene Hackman and checked his IMDb page. I found it interesting that only his son was listed under the children's section, one observer noted. Checking back later, the daughters are now listed in that section. The information keeps changing, which is very odd. What's particularly suspicious is that despite claims of Gene having advanced Alzheimer's, a photo emerged showing him driving independently only weeks before the couple died. If he could drive independently, how could he have advanced Alzheimer's and not feed himself, or realize his wife was dead? Asks one skeptical observer, highlighting yet another contradiction in the official narrative. The neighborhood security logs have become a focal point of the investigation. Multiple unidentified vehicles were recorded entering and leaving the gated community during the critical time frame, confirms a private security consultant who works exclusively with celebrity estates in the Southwest. The timing aligns perfectly with the estimated dates of death. The mystery deepens when considering the Hackman's normal behavior patterns. Gene and Betsy were methodical about healthcare, reveals a longtime Santa Fe medical professional who had treated the couple. Even with his condition, they never missed appointments. At the first sign of serious illness, they would have immediately sought help unless something or someone prevented them. Further complicating matters is the report that Betsy had called to cancel a doctor's appointment on February 10th, saying she couldn't attend because her husband was unwell. Yet somehow, she allegedly called back on February 12th, after her supposed death, to reschedule that same appointment. The sequence of events makes absolutely no sense unless the medical examiner's timeline is completely wrong, states a former coroner who has worked on hundreds of suspicious death cases. Either that, or something far more sinister was happening in that house. The confusion around those doctor's appointments has become a central focus for investigators. If Betsy canceled on February 10th due to Gene's illness, what changed by February 12th that would make her suddenly available for an appointment, only to no-show? And if she truly died on February 11th as claimed, who made that call on February 12th? This isn't just a case of the date of death being off by a day, explains a criminal investigator specializing in timeline analysis. The pattern of communication and then sudden silence suggests a deliberate effort to create the impression that Betsy was still alive days after she supposedly died. That's not a medical examiner's mistake, that's potential evidence of foul play. Sources close to the investigation reveal it has expanded dramatically, with forensic accountants examining financial records, digital experts analyzing phone data, and investigators interviewing everyone who had access to the property in the weeks leading up to the deaths. Many are drawing parallels to other suspicious celebrity deaths that were initially reported as natural causes. This has all the hallmarks of a cover-up, states a veteran entertainment journalist who has spent decades investigating Hollywood deaths. The inconsistent timeline, the missing security footage, the convenient rare disease explanation. We've seen this playbook before. One particularly troubling aspect is the unprofessional behavior of the doctor who spoke to tabloids about Betsy's calls. The fact that the doctor is talking to sketchy news sites is weird, notes one health professional. If my doctor was making public statements like this, I'd stop going to them because it's a major ethical breach. Others point out that this kind of disclosure could constitute a HIPAA violation. Protected health information is protected no matter the status of your health, explains a healthcare compliance expert. A legitimate medical professional would never disclose these kinds of details to tabloid media. The inconsistencies between different news reports have only added to the confusion and speculation. Badly written article, confusing to read, notes one observer about the news coverage. The timeline keeps shifting with each new report, which either suggests incompetent journalism or deliberate obfuscation. Adding to the growing list of bizarre circumstances, several anonymous sources within the Santa Fe Police Department have reportedly expressed concerns about pressure to close the case quickly. There were calls from high up to wrap this up as a natural death scenario, reveals one insider with direct knowledge of the investigation. Several detectives felt evidence was being overlooked or minimized to fit a predetermined narrative. What makes this particularly troubling is the pattern of celebrity deaths that share similar characteristics. When you look at cases like Brittany Murphy, Heath Ledger, or even Michael Jackson, you see a disturbing pattern, explains a former detective who has investigated multiple Hollywood deaths. Initial reports focus on natural causes or personal issues, but deeper investigations often reveal something far more complex. The question is, who benefits from these simplified narratives? Internet sleuths have been piecing together Hackman's final public appearances, uncovering discrepancies that cast further doubt on the official story. There's a photo of him from January at a local coffee shop, looking alert and conversing with staff, notes one digital investigator who has been compiling a timeline of sightings. He's clearly engaging with people, making eye contact, handling money, behaviors inconsistent with late-stage Alzheimer's. Another suspicious element is the handling of the couple's finances in the months leading up to their deaths. Banking records allegedly show unusual withdrawal patterns beginning around October of last year, claims a financial forensics expert familiar with similar cases. Large sums transferred to unfamiliar accounts, investments liquidated without clear purpose. Classic signs of potential elder financial abuse. The Santa Fe property itself has become a focal point for investigators. What's particularly strange is that the security system was reportedly state-of-the-art, installed just last year, explains a home security consultant who has worked with numerous high-profile clients in the area. Yet somehow there's no usable footage from the critical time period. These systems are designed specifically to prevent such gaps in coverage. Estate planning experts have raised questions about recent changes to Hackman's will. Sources close to the family indicate that significant changes were made to his estate plan in the last year of his life, reveals an attorney specializing in celebrity estates. The timing and nature of these changes would typically trigger red flags in any proper elder law practice, especially given his alleged cognitive state. One particularly disturbing theory centers around Betsy's medical appointments in the weeks before her death. The pattern of scheduling, canceling, and rescheduling appointments is consistent with someone trying to avoid medical scrutiny, suggests a healthcare investigator who specializes in suspicious death cases. If she was experiencing symptoms that might prompt medical intervention or questions, keeping doctors at arm's length would be a priority for anyone with nefarious intentions. The hantavirus explanation becomes even more implausible when considering the specific variety reportedly found. The strain allegedly identified is primarily found in the Four Corners region, but is exceedingly rare in urban or suburban settings like the Hackman's neighborhood, explains an epidemiologist with expertise in rare viral diseases. The likelihood of contracting this without extensive exposure to rodent habitats is statistically negligible. Perhaps most damning is the revelation about the state of the house upon discovery. Initial responders were reportedly so disturbed by what they found that several requested psychological counseling afterward, claims a first responder liaison who works with emergency personnel. The scene described in official reports doesn't match what witnesses actually encountered. The estrangement between Hackman and his children has sparked theories about possible inheritance disputes. Gene Hackman's relationship with his 3 children had been strained for years, with reports suggesting they were largely excluded from his will, notes a celebrity biographer familiar with the family's history. In cases where substantial estates are involved, these dynamics can sometimes lead to desperate measures. Former household staff have reportedly provided statements that contradict the narrative of Betsy as a controlling caretaker. Several former employees have described Betsy as deeply devoted but increasingly overwhelmed, reveals a journalist who has interviewed multiple former Hackman employees. She had been actively seeking help with his care, but encountered resistance from unexpected sources. Anonymous neighbors report hearing unusual activity at the property in the days before the couple was found. There were vehicles coming and going at unusual hours, raised voices, things that just weren't normal for that household, claims one neighbor who spoke on condition of anonymity. When we asked if everything was okay, we were told they were having renovations done, but there were no construction vehicles, just unmarked cars. Local law enforcement officials have reportedly requested assistance from federal agencies, suggesting the case may have broader implications. The involvement of specialists from outside local jurisdiction indicates this isn't being treated as a simple domestic tragedy, notes a former federal investigator familiar with such protocols. When federal resources are requested, it typically means evidence has emerged that raises significant concerns. Telephone records allegedly show unusual patterns of communication in the weeks before the deaths. There were calls to numbers associated with individuals known to law enforcement, claims a telecommunications expert who has reviewed similar data in high-profile cases. The frequency and duration of these calls increased dramatically in January, then suddenly stopped altogether. Gene Hackman's medical records reportedly contradict claims of advanced Alzheimer's. His last formal cognitive assessment, conducted approximately 3 months before his death, showed impairment, but not the severely debilitating state described in posthumous reports, reveals a medical professional familiar with geriatric care protocols. The disconnect between documented medical evaluations and posthumous claims is highly unusual. Adding another layer to the mystery is the revelation that a memoir Hackman had reportedly been working on has disappeared. Gene had been documenting his experiences in Hollywood for years, with plans for posthumous publication, claims a publishing industry insider with knowledge of the project. The manuscript, which allegedly contained explosive revelations about powerful figures, has vanished from his home. The timeline inconsistencies have become so problematic that even staunch defenders of the official narrative are beginning to question the sequence of events. When you map out the known activities, the dog vet appointment, the canceled doctor visit, the alleged phone call after death, none of it forms a coherent timeline, explains a criminal analyst who specializes in reconstructing complex cases. Either multiple official reports contain significant errors, or we're not being told the full story. Most recently, former co-stars and industry colleagues have begun speaking out about their concerns. Several prominent Hollywood figures who worked closely with Hackman over the years have privately expressed skepticism about the circumstances, reveals an entertainment industry veteran with close ties to Hackman's professional circle. They're hesitant to speak publicly, but behind closed doors, many believe something deeply troubling occurred. As investigators continue piecing together what really happened in the final days of Gene and Betsy Hackman, the question remains, will the powerful figures allegedly responsible ever face justice? Or will this, like so many Hollywood mysteries before, be quietly buried beneath headlines about younger celebrities? Hollywood has a long history of protecting its darkest secrets, warns a veteran entertainment journalist who has covered celebrity deaths for 3 decades. But in this case, the evidence is too overwhelming to ignore. Something sinister happened in that house. It's a battle between truth and deception, justice and cover-up. And as new evidence continues to emerge, the world is watching and demanding answers. Do you believe the official story about Gene Hackman's death? Is there more to this mystery than we've been told? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe, because we are uncovering more Hollywood secrets that they don't want you to hear.